Okay, everybody, it is the March member Q&A for Yoga for Arthritis. And I got a couple of great questions submitted for today and some things to share, and then we'll see if anybody shows up live and has anything further to query. So the first question here is, I've found that teaching, while deeply fulfilling, can sometimes exacerbate my inflammation, especially during flare-ups. I also understand that movement is essential for managing inflammation. Do you have any strategies for adapting my teaching approach during these periods so I can continue sharing yoga while honoring my body's needs? I absolutely love this. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. So this is clearly a yoga teacher who also lives with some sort of arthritis. By the use of the term flare-ups, I'm guessing it's an inflammatory arthritis. I have so much to say. Okay. Some of it depends on the circumstances of your teaching. So are you teaching, for example, in a studio setting? Are you teaching online? Is it in a community center? Are you teaching privately? And I ask that because there may be different sets of expectations depending on the context of your teaching and how challenging that is for you. And secondary to the context is the style of the class. So are these gentle yoga, beginner yoga, chair yoga, restorative yoga, right? Like what kind of yoga class is it? And how much flexibility do you have in what yoga you offer? So for example, if you normally teach a vinyasa flow class and you are not in a position to be doing vinyasa flow yourself, how can you pivot and still offer what your students are expecting and coming for? Versus if you're teaching restorative class or a chair class, and then it might be very different, right? And then another question is how much flexibility do you have in like completely changing the classes that you offer when you're in a flare? Like, how would your students respond if normally you do a standard hatha class and today we're all going to practice in a chair, or today I'm going to offer a restorative class? Um, Only you know what is allowable in your teaching situation. You know, if you're teaching at a gym, and the class is like all levels hatha yoga, you might have less freedom to say offer a restorative class than if you're teaching in your basement and these are your your people that are coming for your class. Okay, so that it's hard for me to answer without that information, but I'm going to try to address all of it. So let's take the example of the vinyasa flow, which is clearly very physically demanding. Um, how experienced are your students, and how much do they actually need you to demonstrate? And how clear is your verbal instruction? And so that's a variety of pieces there. In the integral yoga tradition, which is how I was trained for my 200-hour, it is all verbal instruction. There is no demonstration. You sit at the front of the room and you talk your students through the class. Now, there are variations on that. There are lots of integral teachers that do demonstrate. I'm an integral teacher. I demonstrate. Part of the reason that I demonstrate is because I'm offering a lot of different options, and it's can be challenging to provide all of those different options without showing them, especially to people who are unfamiliar with your class and haven't done it before. If these are students that have been coming for a while, they already know what Tadasana is, mountain pose. They can do that. I mean, that's one that you obviously could do. But if you're coming into table, you can tell them to come into table. You don't have to do it for them to know what that is. You can give them options, like you could use a wedge, you could put your hands on fists or fingertips. You can provide those options to them verbally without actually demonstrating them. Also, if there are other students in your class that are experienced, they're going to jump right into it. And so, do you have a quorum of students in the class that know what they're doing, that the students who are a little bit more novice can pick up cues from people in the room? And, so there's like at one extreme, no bit demonstration, and all you do is verbal instruction. And I actually, in our 200-hour training, we actually have our students practice that because it forces you to be clearer with your language, which is an incredibly valuable skill. But the other extreme is all demonstration and no verbal instruction. We wouldn't recommend that either, but you can do less demonstration in order to take care of your own body. One way to do that is by always demonstrating the simplest version, which is part of the tenets of yoga for arthritis. We tell you to always demonstrate the simplest version anyway, because we want everybody to know that the simplest version, the most accessible version, is a valid choice. It's the standard choice. Look, even the teacher is doing it. And then if you want to do things that are more physically challenging from there, go right ahead. And what we usually say for our teachers is, if you're going to demonstrate the more challenging things, show them and then come back to the simplest version. So I'm going to show you how to do that really quickly with arms. So you might say, you could bring fingertips to shoulders, arms to cactus, or up alongside your ear. And then you bring your hands back to here, right? So this is standard. If somebody wants to do this or somebody wants to do this, great, but this is a valid choice, right? If you are in a flare, just do this and say, and if you want to take your arms up higher, take your arms up higher. You don't have to take your arms up higher. Taking your arms up higher is something that people understand from your verbal instruction. If they want to do that, they will do that. And if you see that people are doing this, you can say, see if you can relax your shoulders down by reaching your arms up. So you can still provide cues and additional instruction without having to do it. Another thing is, show them and then come out of it, which honestly I recommend anyway. There's no reason you need to stay here for, the 3 full breaths that you're asking them to stay in it. If this is making your arms tired, show them and then drop your arms, because honestly, if you're doing it, they're watching you. And then they're not in their own body having their own experience, right? They need a little bit of, visual cueing to be able to see, okay, this is what I do. They can stay there. They don't need you to stay there. So if you're in a flare and holding your arms here for 3 breaths is tiring, don't hold your arms there. Put your arms there, show them, and then release your arms. Let them focus on their own experience. Also, it frees you up to walk around the room if you want to and have the energy to walk around the room. So there's this whole continuum from, on one end, doing the entire practice with them, which honestly is just not very good teaching, in my opinion. And on the other end, to like not show them anything, and just do it all through verbal instruction, which I think may be challenging when there are a bunch of different variations to consider. And so you choose as the teacher where your teaching style puts you, but then also when you're feeling high energy or low energy, move the needle, do a little less demonstrating, do a little more verbal instruction. So the first point is, can you just change the style of class so that it's something that's easier for you to teach, like chair or like restorative, for example, or like a gentle class. So that's one. Can you change the style? Two, change your teaching style. In other words, less demonstrating, more verbal instruction. When you demonstrate the simplest version. When you demonstrate, don't stay in the demonstration. Allow them to have their own experience. And also, you can cancel class. If you are feeling like the best thing for you is to be in bed, then get in bed and cancel your class. Take care of yourself. You cannot give from an empty cup. And yoga is a unification of mind and body, of individual and collective. If you can't bring caring and giving and compassion and love to your students because you are struggling to be upright, you're doing them a disservice. Get a sub or cancel class Or honestly, have some pre-recorded videos that you could send to your students, or have like a little landing page that has a few recorded classes, or recommend somebody, like, for example, R.A. Yogi, who is part of our Yoga for Arthritis community, who has a bunch of videos that you could say, why don't you go do a class since, I'm in a flare and not feeling up to teaching, explore your home practice. Or give them some recommendations of practices that they can do that are non-physical. Um, okay, I think I answered that question. Oh, there was a part about in it that says, I understand that movement is essential for managing inflammation. So what you do to take care of your own body is not what you do to take care of other people, right? So when you're teaching, you want to honor your body to make sure that you are safe and practicing ahimsa, but you're primarily focused on what you can offer to your students, right? Take care of yourself and offer what's going to serve your students. Your home practice is for you, for your well-being. And so, don't confuse the two. I mean, sometimes they line up beautifully, and like what feels best for you is to do a chair class, and what's going to serve your students is that, it's fine for them to all try a chair class. But what you do for your own body comes first before you're teaching. So if you're not able to take care of your own body and do what serves you, then you have an empty cup and you shouldn't be teaching your class. Movement is important for managing arthritis, but teaching yoga is not essential to the management of arthritis, right? Um, the movement that is best for you when you're in a flare might be some gentle stretches in bed. It might be taking a slow, mindful walk around the block. So you do not need to teach yoga in order to take care of yourself in a flare. And it's a disservice to your students if you show up to teach and you have nothing to give because you're depleted. And model self-care to your students. Show your students that it's okay to say no to things when they don't serve you, and to take care of yourself and to make that a priority, because you are practicing ahimsa and it's modeling for them the practice of ahimsa. Okay, I think I answered that fully. Um, Happy to take follow-up questions to that when you submit the questions in advance, which I know not everybody can make these live, and I'm I love being able to answer your questions that you submit. And sometimes I have questions for you, like, where do you teach? What style of classes do you teach? And what feels okay for you when you're in a flare? And also, by the way, and I should have said this up front, if you are in a flare, make sure that your rheumatologist knows. If you have systemic arthritis, the more you practice mindful self-awareness, the more you will start to notice the subtle cues that suggest you are headed toward a flare. And the quicker you take action, the possibly milder the flare is, shorter duration that the flare is, because you combined both changing your own self-care routine, like what can I not do that is on my schedule, like teaching a vinyasa class, and also your healthcare, because maybe it requires a change in medications. And so if you feel like you're noticing the early indicators of a flare, take action sooner with wise discernment about what you do for yourself, and also engaging with your medical provider. Okay, next question. I have a private yoga client with RA who was benefiting from our movement-based practice. However, she was recently diagnosed with spinal stenosis, and this new diagnosis has left her feeling paralyzed with fear around movement. How can I best support? I want to continue respecting her new fears and concerns while still rebuilding her confidence. Is movement-based practices out of the picture? Should we focus on breath and meditation? Okay. All right, so I first want to disclaim, I cannot provide medical advice. I don't know your client. I don't know the specifics of their RA or of their spinal stenosis. And I say that because the first thing they should be doing, whoever diagnosed them with the spinal stenosis, if they have RA, they probably, hopefully, have a rheumatologist. Um, they should ask their healthcare provider, are there movements that I should avoid? One, be careful about. Two. So what you don't want to do is say, ask your doctor if you can do yoga, because the image that the doctor has in their head of what doing yoga means could be anything from like pretzel, standing on your head, whatever, being in lotus pose, or like, the senior class at the Y or chair class. So when you say do yoga, you don't know what the doctor thinks that means. So that's not a helpful question because you don't know what they're thinking about when they think about yoga. The better question is, what movements should I avoid and what movements should I be careful about? So if they ask those questions, then they come to yoga and they say, I should avoid this. I should be careful about that. Great. This is private yoga. You can design a practice that avoids what they're supposed to avoid and is cautious about the things they're supposed to be cautious about. Bonus points, they can also ask their doctor, is there any movement that would be great for me right now? Any movement that I should really try to incorporate? Okay. So certainly we first want to make sure that we're avoiding what needs to be avoided, being careful about what we need to be careful about, but even better if there are medical recommendations about what to do. And if they've had physical therapy, then oftentimes they'll have, the printout or the recommendations for home practice from their physical therapist, and you can use that. You can incorporate their physical therapy. I've talked about this before, yogify the PT, right? So do the PT exercises, but pay attention to the whole body and alignment and, incorporate breath with the movement and make it a mindfulness practice so you can put the PT exercises into the yoga practice. That's awesome. Movement is important for everybody. If you can move your body, you should move your body. The question is how, right? So, should we only do non-physical practices like breathing and meditation? No. Unless some temporarily, if somebody is in a flare, if they're really struggling that day, okay, you can do a non-physical practice that day. There are some days when a non-physical practice is appropriate, but everybody needs to move. There is this model called the fear avoidance cycle, the cycle of fear avoidance. Google it or search it. You don't have to use Google. Search for it. The cycle of fear avoidance. So what the cycle of fear avoidance shows, and this is related to, oftentimes applied to physical activity. This is the model that we used for the study that we're doing right now of yoga for methadone users with chronic low back pain. If you're in pain, you can either pay attention to the pain, consider what the information is, the useful information that the pain is providing, consult with your medical doctor, do what is, wise to do to manage the pain or take care of the issue that's underlying the pain, and then either recover or maintain a management strategy. That's the healthy cycle on one side of the cycle of fear avoidance. It says in the cycle of fear avoidance, it says recovery. We know we're talking about chronic diseases here. There may be recovery from the flare, right? I'll give you that. But it's more of it doesn't end there. It's a cycle and the pain is going to happen again and you got to deal with it again. But the other side of the cycle of fear avoidance is that you have pain and you go into pain catastrophizing of all of the terrible things that it must mean that you have pain. and all of the worst possible scenarios of what will happen if you move with this pain. And then you go into avoiding things that you are fearful of. So you don't move, you move less, right? And then comes this effect of the not moving that has three parts: disuse, disability, and depression. The three Ds. They're not because of the pain, they're because of the avoidance. Pain, fear, catastrophizing, avoidance, right? Or pain, catastrophizing, fear, avoidance. Either way, it's the avoiding that leads to disuse, disability, and depression. And so we need to move. We need to move the body, or it's going to fall into disuse and disability, right? The whole move it or lose it. It actually is true, but you want discernment in the use. Okay. So you don't want to get into the cycle where fear is dictating your decision making. You want a relationship with the pain where you listen to what the pain is telling you and you make wise choices based on what your medical doctor says. Also, each person is the world's leading expert of their own body mind. If it doesn't feel right, then don't do it. So you want to take your doctor's medical advice, your own understanding of your body, and then make wise choices. Wise choices don't include avoiding movement for the rest of your life, right? Because then when you have disability, depression, disuse, then that actually perpetuates the cycle where you have more pain. Depression makes pain worse, right? The more functional mobility that you lose, the harder it is to move and the worse it feels to move, right? So you don't want to perpetuate that negative cycle. I think it can be helpful here to apply this idea of separating story from phenomenon. So what is the actual circumstance that I am dealing with? I'm dealing with RA in the joints, in this case, RA in the joints and spinal stenosis. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, and I probably should have led with this, spinal stenosis is a narrowing of the spinal canal. So your spinal cord runs down a bunch of holes in the vertebrae. So each vertebrae has a hole in the middle of it, and your spinal cord runs all the way through. And what happens in spinal stenosis is that there's a narrowing, there's buildup on the inside. It's sort of like a bone spur, but it's the inside of this whole foramen that is narrowing. And so there's less room for the spinal cord. Okay. So you can imagine why somebody might be fearful about that, because it's closing in on the spinal cord. And if we have injury to the spinal cord, then that can be very serious and it can lead to, all kinds of, it can lead to paralysis. It could lead to, brain issues. Spinal cord injury is not something that you want to play around with, which is why it's really important to talk to your doctor. What do I need to avoid? What do I need to be careful about? But also, well, first of all, movement that doesn't even involve the spinal column, obviously that's great. Like, keep your spine long and do all kinds of movements with your limbs, right? That has nothing to do with spinal stenosis. But even with spinal stenosis, you will find that forward folding tends to feel comfortable. This is not universally true, but something that we often do to like a quick test to tell if somebody has spinal stenosis versus degenerative disc disease is the shopping cart test. If you ask them, do you feel better at the grocery store? Because when you're at the grocery store and you're like pushing a cart, you have your weight, you can lean forward onto the cart and sort of round your spine a little bit. And that usually provides comfort, because what puts pressure on the spinal cord is back bending. So generally speaking, what you want to avoid for spinal stenosis are things like cobra pose, like cat, cow pose, right? Things that are back bending, bridge pose. It also depends where the stenosis is, which movements are gonna, press on that area. So generally being careful of or completely avoiding back bends may very well be indicated. But again, talk to the doctor to find out for sure. And then, the reality of what we're dealing with, we have spinal stenosis, we have RA, we want to be careful about things versus the fear avoidance cycle, that's story. That's like an idea I have in my head of like the worst case scenario of what can happen, which is not what I'm actually dealing with right now. This separation of story versus phenomenon, like the story that I'm telling myself, is also honestly something that we should all try to be practicing right now when there's a lot going on that is uncertain, unpredictable, can elicit fear. What is actually happening that we need to be wise and discerning about, that we need to make right decisions about in order to navigate this present reality? And what are possible future scenarios that are not happening right now, but that are causing me poor mental health, that are causing me to avoid things that might actually be for my benefit in terms of my own health and well-being. So this is a great sort of laboratory example of if you are avoiding all movement because you're afraid that if you move, you're going to be paralyzed, then you are avoiding things that are actually good for you out of a story that you have created about the worst case scenario, which is unlikely to happen if you're following your doctor's instructions. Okay, that was a long way around the block to say you got to move in the right ways with guidance from their medical doctor and also listening to their own body. If it hurts, especially if it's nerve pain, if it's a sharp shooting pain, do not do it. Move slowly and gently so that you can pay attention to how you're feeling and notice when something doesn't feel okay. But being fearful, like think about this from a whole person, from a biopsychosocial spiritual model. What does fear do? How is fear going to affect our well-being energetically, mentally, emotionally, physically? How's it going to change our cortisol levels, for example? And then what are the ramifications of that for our health and well-being? So you actually may be doing more harm to your health with the fear than protecting your health with the avoidance, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's that one. And also, the question is, should I stick with breath and meditation? Oh my gosh, use breath and meditation. So we're talking about the importance of movement, the whole toolbox of yoga. Bring meditation, especially mindfulness meditation, which is how do I actually feel right now? What am I noticing right now? How does the tip of my nose feel right now? What is okay? What can I be grateful for? Loving kindness meditation. I love this body and all it can do and all that's going right and all of the ways that it communicates with me about what it needs. So gratitude practice for sure, which can help take us out of fear. Meditation that can also build back gray matter that gets deteriorated by chronic pain. So everybody with chronic pain should be meditating, but especially if you're in a place of fear, what is happening right now in this present moment? Bringing it back to now instead of some future hypothetical story. Now is the only moment that's real, right? The rest is projection or rumination. Breathing practices that help calm the nervous system, for all of the reasons. If there's fear and worry and concern, then that's probably affecting the whole state of the autonomic nervous system. So helping to regulate breath is going to help with the fear, the effects of the fear on the nervous system, but it's also going to help with pain. because when we move out of the stress response and into the relaxation response, that helps with reducing pain severity. And especially for the RA, so the joints that are affected by the RA are different from the joints that are affected by the spinal stenosis, right? Spinal stenosis is in the spinal column. Those are not synovial joints. The synovial joints are where the RA is. So all of the stuff that we do for joints with RA, like joint mobilization to get synovial fluid moving and things that help to strengthen the muscles around the joint. So if it's in the knees, for example, doing things that are going to strengthen the quadriceps, which has nothing to do with the spinal column, right? You can strengthen the quadriceps and protect the knees without compromising what's happening with the spine. But you don't want to immobilize the spine either, because then you're going to lose mobility in the spine. So this is where the medical guidance and, honoring what feels okay for you is going to be really important. Okay. Those were the two questions that were submitted in advance. I also want to mention just a few things that are coming down the pike. Kylie and I have been working really hard on some things that we're really excited about. Some of them are going to be coming this year in 2025, and some of them are going to take us a while and are going to push into 2026. But so I'm going to tell you what's coming down the pike most immediately. One is we have some podcast episodes coming. So I think one just came out and there are a few more on the way. So if you do not already subscribe to the podcast, have alerts, like it, follow it, all of the things, depending on what platform you use. I think it's on all the platforms. The Yoga Room, RHEUM, like rheumatology, the Yoga Room, check it out. We have a ton of episodes already that you can peruse, and there are more on the way. Also, there are a few different ways to work with me individually. So there are a bunch of ways that people might want to work with me one-on-one. One is yoga therapy, private yoga therapy, which at this point I'm only doing online. So if you're keen to do yoga therapy online through Zoom, you can book one-on-one with me. If you want some coaching, I am a certified health and wellness coach. If you want some health coaching to change the way that you live in general, your lifestyle, how to take care of yourself, create a plan, stay accountable to that plan, get unstuck where you're feeling stuck. That's especially something that health coaching is good for. We can also do coaching, and I can actually combine those two. So we can do a combination of yoga therapy with health coaching or yoga coaching. But also, if you are a yoga professional seeking mentorship. So this may be if you're a yoga teacher or a yoga therapist and you are new to this work, you don't have a lot of experience working with people who have arthritis and chronic pain, or you're just a newly minted yoga therapist and you're working with private clients and small groups for the first time outside of your training program, you may want to work with me as a mentor. So that's mentoring for yoga professionals. I also do mentoring for people who are interested in research. You have a case report that you want to write, or you want some career mentoring around getting involved with research, or what master's degree should I be looking at, right? That sort of stuff. That's all. So career coaching, research mentoring, all of that is available too. So in any of those ways of working with me, there are three options. One option is just to book a one-on-one session with me and, buy the individual session. And that can be either 25 minutes or 50 minutes, depending on how much time you think you need. And we can meet one time and do whatever you want to do. The time is yours. And then the next time you have a question or you need me, that's for things that are outside. Obviously, you're a member. Any question about yoga and arthritis more generally, I can answer like this. But if it's specific to your situation, if you want me to look at an intake form and talk with you about what your plan is and all of that, or your personal health situation and what should my yoga practice look like, we can do that as a one-off, one-on-one, touch base periodically as needed. You can also buy a package. So you're buying a few one-on-one sessions up front, and that reduces the cost. So the packages are either 3 hour-long sessions or 6 half-hour sessions. And I say that, but it's 25 minutes and 50 minutes so that I have a break in between sessions. The third option, so first option, book an individual session. Second option, get a package. Third option is a year of mentorship. And that includes a full year of, a set number of one-on-one sessions with me, but also email responses, document review. It includes membership, and we'll add the year of membership. You all are members, so we'll add a free year of membership whenever your membership is coming to an end, so that it's included and all of the resources that come with it. And so if you're seeking mentorship as a yoga professional, or a year of health coaching, then let me know and I'll send you the link. I'll answer any questions that you have. If you want to meet one-on-one and talk about it first so that you know what you're getting into before you sign up for a year of one-on-one sessions, then please feel free to do that. The last thing, is it the last thing I want to mention? Sure. There's so much more, but one more thing that I'm going to mention is the audiobook is coming for my memoir. I recorded the audiobook quite a while ago. We have been fighting with Amazon to try to get this thing up on Amazon as an audiobook. I'm over it. And I'm trying to avoid Amazon anyway right now. Kylie actually showed me a way to search online and get non-Amazon results, which is amazing. Okay, so we have the audiobook. It's going to be available on all the other platforms. So you'll be able to get the audiobook on Spotify, on Apple, on our website if you want to download it as an MP4. So for those of you who have been wanting the memoir, but you're not like book readers, it's also available as an ebook. So if you want to get it for Kindle, it is on Amazon as an ebook. It's on other platforms as an ebook as well. You can also buy the ebook as a downloadable file on our website if you want to do it that way. So you can buy the hard copy book. You can get it signed if you want to get it directly through us. You can get the ebook, or now you can also get the audiobook if you're somebody who likes to listen to your books, and it's me dictating the audiobook. We are going to be finally, I've been waiting for the audiobook to be available to launch book club. We're going to have book club. We're going to go through the memoir together and talk about it. And there are themes in there that I think are relevant to everybody's life. So it's not about me and my story. It's using this particular story of a year of events to reflect on our own lives. And there's a whole lot of yoga philosophy in there that I think will come out when we start talking about it in book club. So those are just a few things that are coming down the pike. You'll be seeing more in emails and on our social. And if there's anything that you think that we should be offering that you're not, please let us know. We're happy to take requests. We're always trying to create what's going to be of greatest value to all of you. So happy Friday, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Om Shanti.